Hi, everybody. Today's Monday, June 30th, 2025, and our friend Larry Johnson is back with us. Welcome back, Larry.
Hey, we survived the weekend. No massive nuclear war, so that's a good thing.
And June is
And
gone.
and listen, I am really getting irritated with you. You know, I thought I had the corner, seized with respect to shirts, but man, you keep showing up with a better shirt every day. You know, you're looking good.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. I've had some of mine for 20. In fact, I've had some of my shirts are as old as you are, okay?
I totally get it. Larry, getting started with what has happened in the Middle East. And
Yeah.
it seems that Donald Trump, I don't know if we can believe that after that attack on Iran, he's done with the case of Iran. What do you feel about him and his current policy on Iran? Are we gonna see new attacks? Are we gonna see some sort of pressure on Netanyahu? Because the other day he came out literally defending Netanyahu and his position in Israel because Netanyahu was facing the many problems in the courts in Israel. What is your take?
Donald Trump's not finished with attacking Iran. And if the Iranian officials are foolish enough to think that, okay, he's going to let us alone, they're going to be um, not just disappointed. They'll pay with their lives potentially. Um, Donald Trump's a little bit like that character Salasso from the movie Godfather, you know, um, and the people that if they've seen the movie, they remember the scene where Don Corleone's son Michael gets beat up, jaw broken by this corrupt police captain, and who's in the pay of Salasso. And then when he comes back from the hospital, his other two brothers, characters played by Jim Caan and the character Hagen, um, Robert Duvall, they're having an argument about Duvall saying, "Oh, we got to make a deal with Salazzo," and Caan said, "Oh, I'm going to kill him." But the character played by Al Pacino just says, "No, Salazzo wants to kill. He's not going to stop until Dad's dead. We got to take care of him. I'll kill him." Now, I'm not suggesting that Iran get out in the killing business. In fact, we've seen this ridiculous false story being pushed that Iran is calling the Ayatollahs issued a fatwa to assassinate Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. Read the fatwa, you morons. That's not what it says. But, the only ones who are actually talking openly about assassinating a foreign leader are the Israelis, the Israeli Defense Minister Katz, and people like Lindsey Graham. I mean, it makes me absolutely crazy to watch this combination of these Zionist Israelis and Americans who routinely call for the murder of Iranian officials. And look, let's do the body count. Who's been assassinating who? Okay? Give me the list of Israeli officials assassinated by Iran. 0. Give me the list of American officials assassinated by Iran. 0. Come up with a long list of Iranians assassinated by Americans and Israelis. Enough already. Sorry. See, you got me on a rant. Get my blood pressure up this early in the week.
Larry, yesterday I've seen that Marandi shared a photo, a map that shows there are various planes and airplanes coming to Israel. I don't know what's the activity there, but it seems that he was suggesting that they're preparing Israel for a new attack on Iran.
Sure, I think that's right. They're going to look for an excuse because, again, as I've said before, this is not about Iran's program to enrich uranium. That Iran's going to get the bomb. This is more about they've got to get regime change because as long as Iran is in this relationship with Russia and China, they're a threat. Iran is a strong pillar of BRICS because of Iran's combination of oil and natural gas. It's a far, far more important member of BRICS than Brazil or South Africa. South Africa's in it just because early on they say, "Hey, we'll join." South Africa really brings nothing to the table. Brazil with Lula, sorry, it's not a trustworthy partner at all, and it's now president of BRICS, and it's done nothing to really promote or build up BRICS. So, but I think Russia and China correctly recognize that just Iran, by virtue of its location and its natural resources, is really a strategic ally. And I don't believe that they've spent the last 7 years conducting joint military exercises with them just to cut them loose and say, "Oh, you're not important, you're not relevant." Those who argue that, Russia's not going to put anything on the line to save Iran, I don't think they've been paying attention. But everyone's entitled to their own opinion, I guess.
But if we consider that Israel would attack Iran, I don't know what else can they do in terms of, because they attacked the nuclear facilities, they did their best shot, that they did everything that they could do, and we did regime change. I don't see that getting anywhere close to what they wanted to achieve, because Larry, it's not just about Iran. They had a lesson to learn with the case of Russia. They did the same to Russia. They wanted to do regime change in Russia in the initial, in the first year of the war. They did everything. You remember Michael McFaul coming out and tweeting, "These are not Russian people. This is Putin's war. He's attacking." I see the same attitude, Larry, happening with the case of Iran. And as time goes by with these attacks, Iranians know who's the enemy right now, because many people, we had some sort of division in Iran between far right, far left, people in the middle. They were advocating for negotiations, talking with the West, but this attack on Iran has literally changed everything. Division on the part of the Iranian people. They don't see themselves as liberal, far right, left, religious, non-religious, and they are prepared to support the country because the country's attack is not about the government.
Well, this sort of the Hollywood version of this is that you thought we could, you kill a few people at the top and the regime would implode, and these folks who are in support of the United States and Western Europe would rise up and take control. The West has really gone out of its way to construct a narrative about Iran as a ruthless terrorist state. Well, let's look at the facts. And I wrote about this the other day at sonar21.com. To my knowledge, Iran has never been involved in a war of aggression in terms of invading another country for whatever reason. They've been around now for 46 years. In that 46-year period, the United States has been involved with multiple invasions of other countries. Now, the United States likes to say, well, Iran's bad because they build explosively formed projectiles, EFPs they were called, during the U.S. invasion of Iraq. that were used to attack U.S. soldiers. Well, hey guys, it's called war. Number one, uh, the United States has been notorious for providing weapons and knowledge to kill other people around the world. So when Iran provides support to Iraqis who are fighting back against an illegal criminal invasion of Iraq and killing U.S. soldiers or wounding them, too damn bad, guys. You shouldn't be out invading another country. All right? So, that's evidence of Iranian terrorism. And it's just like, oh, please. Yeah, we call it terrorism. And then when we do it, it's liberation, it's freedom fighting. It's all that crap. The attacks on the U.S. embassies in Beirut and the bombing of the Marine barracks. Again, who was killing Lebanese Shia? It was the United States. We were bombing, shelling into the Bekaa Valley back then. And then when they fight back, we can't take it. So I'm really getting tired of this U.S. playing the victim when we are the victimizer. And we've done it repeatedly to Iran. The number of scientists, the latest assassination of nuclear physicists isn't the first time. Hell, it was being done 12, 13 years ago. So it is, what's sort of surprising is Iran has not fought back. But I had one of the readers at Sonar 21, a fellow actually by the name of Yusuf. He is a Native American. He's a convert to Islam. He started off in the Salafi wing, but then came to his senses and realized these are some crazy people, and is a Shia. But he wrote an outstanding explanation to me about why, how Iran is fighting, and why it fights the way it does. And in fact, one of the things, when you look at these attacks that the Iranian response to the Israelis, they killed very, very few civilians, only 29. I mean, they destroyed entire buildings, but only killed 29 civilians. At least that's what Israel's admitting to. Now, it wasn't the case in Iran. They killed upwards of over 600, I believe. Yeah. So it's just, let's look at what people actually do. The Israelis are the terrorists. And, I hope we don't get your channel canceled by saying that, but the definition of terrorism, according to Bibi Netanyahu, I like his definition, the use of violence against civilians for political purposes. This is the simplified version. Who's killed the most civilians? Israel's got so much blood on its hands. Iran doesn't.
Many people right now in Iran are arguing, so what would be the next step for us to deal with the United States? Because Donald Trump, with the negotiations, with his attitude in attacking Iran.
Right.
What would you say, Larry? What do you feel about the way that Iran should somehow pursue these sort of talks, or maybe these sort of negotiations? I don't know. Do you see any sort of outcome coming out of negotiations? Is the United States capable of making a deal under the Trump administration?
No, incapable. Whatever, it can't be trusted. The various games that Trump has played with this, but ultimately to justify attacking Iran. The United States, if I'm sitting in the position as an Iranian, I look at the United States is an enemy. There's no way to peacefully coexist with it. We have to be prepared to defend ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that Iran should attack the United States, but I'm saying that arm yourself, improve your home defense, recognize that they're going to attack you again. Establish your relationships with Russia and China. Build up, get some friends who are actually going to respect you as a people and as a country. But recognize there's, right now, and it's not even Donald Trump. It's much deeper than that. This is this desire to destroy Iran. You know, I, I was just starting my career, upper, studying for a PhD back in 1979, and recall vividly when Iran took the American hostages with with myself not really having an understanding or appreciation of what the United States had done meddling in Iran previously, overthrowing the government of Mossadegh. So the way it was presented to me and all my cohorts back then, we were all 23, 24 years old, was that Iran just out of the blue attacked America, took hostages. No, that wasn't the case, but that's how it was presented. So now that those people, well, when we were 24 then, we're now 70 years old, 68 years old, and many still hold that memory of how dare Iran, they attacked us without reason, without justification. Well, no, it was just the opposite. They were reacting in fury to the U.S. Overthrowing a legitimate government and then installing a government that was corrupt and vicious. And then to top it off, one thing you hear, oh, those Iranians are chanting death to America. Yeah, we encouraged Saddam Hussein to start the war, invade Iran, a war that killed upwards of 500,000 Iranians and provided them with chemical weapons. Yeah, when Iran chants death to America, they have a pretty good reason for doing so. Because the United States has been the aggressor. So, yeah, coming back to your question, what's to negotiate over? The United States is not a trustworthy negotiating partner, especially under Donald Trump.
I remember that I studied those days of war because I was a little kid in those days. But I studied those days, and many people were arguing that in those days that Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons against Iran, and a lot of people were suggesting to the supreme leader of Iran in those days, Khomeini, and Ayatollah Khomeini in those days, they were asking, we can do the same. We can attack them with chemical weapons. If you just order that, we're going to do this. And he said, no, we're not going to use chemical weapons against them. Let them use it. These are a nation. We know how fragile, how the situation was somehow chaotic when the revolution has happened in Iran. But even in those days, Iran didn't consider killing people with chemical weapons in order to achieve something on the battlefield. I don't know why anybody would assume that Iran would use it against Israel. I would argue, even if Iran had nuclear weapons, any sort of weapons, they're not going to use it in Israel. Because you look at the Iranian attack on Israel, it's all about the strategic targets in Israel.
Right. Yeah, that's when you look at the map that I think Iran produced, but I think it's accurate. They excuse me, they were focused on hitting key power plants, refineries, ports, seaports, airports, research institutions, businesses that are connected directly with the Israeli military and intelligence headquarters. What's interesting is from just if you're going to fight a no holds barred war, take out the water treatment plants in Israel. Without water, man, they'll die. Iran didn't do that, and I would argue Iran's been far more humane. And this fellow that wrote the essay that I published at Sonar 21, made a point talking about the how the theology of the Shia version of Islam is a guiding principle here, and I think he's right. I think he's absolutely correct. The Iranians are demonstrating far more humanity than the Zionists are.
What else Israel can do in order to bring the United States into the conflict? What I don't see anything but false flag operations, maybe inside the United States.
Yeah.
Something to. How do you see that possibility? How is that gonna somehow convince Donald Trump that?
No, I think it's highly likely. It is. Again, the narrative has been built that Iran is the number one sponsor of terrorism, even though we've got a track record of the countries that are, the terrorist groups that have actually been attacking and killing civilians were not Iranian backed. It was just the opposite. It was the Sunnis, groups tied to Saudi Arabia. 9/11 is the classic example, and so yeah, that's what I'm afraid of in the coming weeks. That there will be that kind of attack. It will be blamed on Iran, and then the United States is going to try to go back out and retaliate and kill more Iranians. And this last exchange between the United States, it's reported that the U.S. Gave Iran a 2-hour warning that we're going to go bomb these places, and then Iran gave the United States advance warning. Yeah, we're going to hit Al Udeid. If it comes to pass that there is this false flag, the United States retaliates, then the next retaliations by Iran will not be signaled in advance, and this thing could really escalate out of control.
When people like Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal, these people are advocating to arm Ukraine, to send more weapons, to send more aid to Ukraine, I assume that they don't care about Ukraine. They don't care about the future of Ukraine. But what is the case with Israel? Do they really care about Israel? Do they really want something for Israel? Or they don't care the same way that they do with the case of Ukraine? Because in this way, they're talking about helping Israel in terms to defeat Iran. It's unbelievable. You cannot have a nation of 8 million people to defeat a nation of 90 million people. It's somehow delusional if you go with that plan, even with the United States in the region, because the United States has to have some sort of bases in the region to attack Iran. If they cannot use the Arab states, and they're going to be hit, and Diego Garcia is somehow defenseless. If they use Diego Garcia, how is that going to? What I want to know what's going on in the mind of these people when they're talking about attack on Iran.
Well, they're not. Unfortunately, so many of my fellow citizens have a very diluted view of U.S. military capability, and you hear it coming out of Donald Trump's mouth. Oh, we got the mightiest army. We're the best. Nobody's better than us. We're great. Nobody's willing to step back and take an objective look at the last 3 years. That we've discovered that the United States is no longer capable of industrial production of artillery shells, attack of missiles, Patriot missiles, we can only produce in limited quantities. We've produced very elaborate, expensive weapon systems that when they are attacked, they cannot be quickly or easily replaced. So, like the THAAD, the one air defense system, the THAAD missile, the Theater High Altitude Air Defense, THAAD. Each one of those missiles costs $13 million a piece. You fire 2 or 3 at one incoming missile that costs, an Iranian ballistic missile that may have cost $1 million to produce. You're firing $26 million or $39 million, 3 missiles at $1 million missile. I mean, it's just, it's economic insanity. So we're at a position that we think we can solve everything militarily, and yet we cannot, as was illustrated with the Houthis. That's what you keep trying to wake people up to that. Look, all of our tough talk, we're going to wipe them out. Yeah, and we killed a lot of civilians and accomplished what? The Houthis are still lobbing missiles into Israel. They still got the Red Sea effectively shut down to, any ship that's headed for Israel, it's not getting through. It's going to be targeted. So it is, the U.S. foolishly believes that it can solve these things militarily. And there's a diplomatic way forward, but the United States has zero. It's not a diplomacy based upon, hey, each side has, valid positions to present, and we'll see if we can find an accommodation. We're trying to force our view on others. That's our deal. And, Iran wisely up to this point, has rejected it. But, what I've been sort of surprised by is Iran is sort of, they still naively believed, hey, the U.S. wants to negotiate. Maybe we can, there's something we can talk about. We're not to be trusted. We just saw that here was Trump said, okay, hey, we'll see you guys on Sunday. And we knew whether Israel's going to attack on Friday because Trump said, I knew all about it. I knew every detail. It was a ruse. It was a lie. So, until the United States has got a lot to repent of, in my view.
What I feel, it seems that everybody's just gambling on the situation with Netanyahu. They want to save him in Israel. They want to do whatever is necessary to be done in terms of saving Netanyahu in Israel. How important is Netanyahu, Larry? Why Donald Trump needs to? Why does he need to come out and defend Netanyahu? If we assume that most of these problems that are happening are coming from Netanyahu and his long-term administration for such a long time, many years they are in power in Israel, they changed everything. The texture of society, the mindset of people have been formed and changed under his administration. Why does Donald Trump need to help him?
Trump is a Zionist, and he's bought into that whole nonsense that, God gave this land to Israel and we got to uphold God's views, please. Netanyahu's time in the United States as a student years ago has given him great insight. He is, he speaks very well, and forget the fact that he's accused of great corruption. I find the charges entirely credible, but he is all about keeping himself in power. And again, it's not an opinion. We've got 30 years of evidence of him repeatedly lying about, oh, Iran's just weeks away, months away from getting a nuclear weapon. It's all been a lie. He is, I view him as a man with no soul, no morality. He's just wantonly killing women and children, encouraging a war against the Palestinian people. And when you go back and look at this, the emergence of the Meir Kahane fanatics in Israel as they become a more and more important political force and expanding settlements into the West Bank, and their treatment of the Palestinians is subhuman. That's Bibi. Bibi has no regard for human life, in my view. And Trump is a great enabler of him. So this is, they're even talk now of a ceasefire. I don't believe it for a minute, because their ceasefire means you got to eliminate Hamas. I went back when I posted my piece the other day. And I think most of your viewers, they don't understand. So the Ayatollah is now running the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's 1979, 1980. And Iraq then starts the invasion of Iran with the strong encouragement and support of the United States. Israel gets a meeting with Ronald Reagan in February of 1981, and accompanied by the CIA. And what do they ask? They ask for permission to start supplying weapons and equipment to Iran. Iran, for example, it needed to replace the tires on its F-4 jets. The F-4 jets that we just destroyed, they were useless. But back then, we're talking 45 years ago, they meant something. So they came up with a system where Israel was selling Iran all of these weapons and spare parts. Continued up through the Iran-Contra scandal in 1986 when that all blew up. But so, we've seen, here's another example. Iran plays both sides. They were funding Hezbollah. They were funding Hamas. Why? Because they wanted to use groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, to weaken the Palestinian Authority, to prevent an actual two-state solution coming into being. So, the goal throughout has been to keep the Palestinians out and down and under control.
What's going on with the peace deal as the Trump administration is talking about? They're trying. He tweeted the other day that Netanyahu is time for a ceasefire. Is he going to get it? Is he going to be able to force Netanyahu into a ceasefire?
No. Are you kidding? Yeah. And I think he's just doing that for window dressing. He's not serious about that at all. Not at all. If he's serious about a peace deal, cut Israel off immediately. Stop the supply of weapons and money. So you're going to stop this. You're going to stop killing. There are a lot of these aid groups where they're like, in the United States, it is, in some states, it's illegal to put a block of salt out in a field so that you can attract deer, so that then you can kill them. It's illegal to do that in some states. That's what Israel is and the United States are now doing with the Palestinians. They get these feeding stations where they're distributing aid, and then they line them up and they shoot them. It's evil. It's a level of venality. It's vile. It is genuine evil, and the United States is a participant in it.
Larry, with the situation in Syria, it seems that Israel wants to keep Golan Heights
Yeah.
and they don't give it back to Syria. But do you see, when we talk about, even with the case of Ukraine, I have to come back to Ukraine because Ukraine has everything that we need for the
Yeah.
conflict in the Middle East. You have Zelensky trying to negotiate while he's not the official president of Ukraine, and we have the same case in Syria. Al Jolani, who's not the president, official president, he's talking, he's a president. Everybody tries to recognize him, but after all, we know that he was not elected in
Hey,
Syria.
he's CIA appointed and approved, man. Come on.
There are many things going on, Larry, in Syria. Many things going on, and the United States know what's going on there. Iran knows, Turkey knows, everybody, Israel knows what's going on in Syria. And with this sort of plan to let the new president, he's not the president, he's the self-appointed president of Syria, saying that I want to give it, I want to give up on the Golan Heights and other parts of southern Syria, let them in the hand of Israelis. That won't bring a permanent, and I would say calmness, a permanent solution to what's going on in Syria. It's going to complicate the situation in Syria.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, this this notion that outsiders can manipulate and create conditions in another country and then it'll be stable and secure is just, it's a fantasy. You know, the collapse of Assad, you know, first and foremost, that was Assad's fault. You know, he refused to listen to advice from the Russians and from the Iranians. And now, unfortunately, the people of Syria and the various, you know, ethnic and religious groups that still populated are paying the price. And you know, I never again want to hear anybody from the United States criticize Iran for being, they're a sponsor of terrorism. What the hell do you call Jelani? That's U.S. sponsored terrorism right there. We don't even try to hide it. You know, the United States has been involved with sponsoring as many terrorist groups as any other country in the world, probably more than any other country in the world. And yet we're always projecting onto other countries that they're doing what we do. So this, you know, the belief that they'd create a stable situation in Syria and that, you know, Jelani is just going to, you know, he's going to be the good little house slave. You know, he's going to step and fetch it. You know, he'd do what he's told. Yeah, you know, one of these days he's probably going to get tired of that, and he's going to, you know, do what he's been doing all along, which he is a genuine Salafist and uncompromising. You know, they've already killed Christians, but you know, hey, the Zionists are killing Christians. We saw this attack the other day by these Zionist settlers attacking a Christian village in the West Bank. Christians, they were Muslims, but we don't care. They're Palestinians. Who gives a shit? They're not real humans. You know, apologize for the profanity, but it angers me that there's such a complete disregard for humanity among these people. And the United States is perpetuating it, and we're seeing it again. We're seeing it in Syria. You know that it's going to remain. It's going to remain a place of great instability and unrest. You know, for at least the next 10 years, if not longer.
What is the priority for the Trump administration right now? We know the case of Iran, the case of Russia, and the situation with China. And between Israel and Gaza and Palestinians. What is the first priority for the foreign policy of the United States for the time
Get
being?
get Donald Trump a Nobel Peace Prize. That's it. Man, you think these people are thinking strategically? I mean, he's a golfer. He doesn't play chess. God, he barely plays checkers. Um, this is. Um, I really don't think they have a strategic vision in mind. They want to defeat China. The ultimate goal, yeah, defeat China, split Russia and China apart. That's the ultimate goal. Iran is just a stepping stone on that path, because if you can destabilize Iran and get a regime in place that's going to be carrying water for the United States, then it's going to make life more difficult for Russia and China. That's what this is all about. But do not discount Donald Trump's lust he wants that Nobel Peace Prize. Now, maybe you come to the realization all he has to do is threaten to bomb the Nobel Peace Committee hit them with nuclear weapons. And if they don't, unless they give him a Nobel Peace Prize. So that might be one way to get it. But, Trump is all about Trump. Yeah, and this, I call it's an act that he wants to promote peace and settle conflicts. He's one of the biggest instigators of it.
I talked with Professor Marandi about the crucial moments in which Iran has decided to get closer to Russia. He said mostly happened in the aftermath of the situation in Ukraine, because Russia felt that Russia is being attacked by the West, by the whole West, the collective West is attacking Russia. And they wanted to do something. They wanted new sort of partners. And Iran got closer to Russia. Those people who were in Russia for such a long time, we know that Vladimir Putin got somehow tried to help to try to manage the situation in Russia. But after all, these people were so powerful. I would argue in Iran was as well the same case. These are high rank people who are involved in the governments in Iran and Russia, who felt that they can get closer to the United States. They tried to do everything, Larry. I would argue for the case of Iran, they tried to do everything to get closer to the United States. But as time goes by, we know that what has happened in the case of Russia. And Russia came to a moment that they just don't care what the United States wants, and they're just trying to do everything on the battlefield. And as long as far as I know, that even Vladimir Putin is trying to make a deal with the United States just to get rid of the United States, not just to be more involved with the United States. It seems that the case of Iran is coming to some sort of to a similar situation as we're witnessing with the case of Russia. Do you believe that these people who are studying Russia, Middle East, Iran, and who are, as you've mentioned, the enemy, the enemy of the United States, in their view, is China? What do they want to do with these sort of policies? Because as time goes by, they're getting more distance from Russia and Iran. And Russia and Iran are much closer to China, Larry, because China is just sitting back looking what has happened to Russia, what is happening to Iran. The next is us.
Yeah. Well, let's put it in, human terms, as far as what kind of person are you with your neighbors? So you've got people that live around you. Is your real intent that you want to take control of their homes, take control of their properties, rape their women, take the money from their bank accounts, and make sure that they become your slaves? Is that your goal? Well, that's pretty sick and perverted. But that's what the United States is trying to do. It's not, because the alternative vision is that, let's say that you're quite wealthy and you got a couple of neighbors that are not as wealthy, but you go out of your way to go to them and say, hey, what can I do to help make you wealthy? What can I, hey, I can pay off your house so you no longer have that mortgage payment to worry about. And so all of a sudden you become a person who's not trying to take from them, not trying to control them, but simply trying to assist them, to be a friend. Well, unfortunately, the United States is not looking to be a friend of China or a friend of Russia or a friend of Iran. Now, I understand why, from the standpoint of both the Russians and Chinese, the last thing they want is to get into an actual confrontation with the United States because of military, because it would be deadly for the world. So they're trying to figure out how to manage dealing with this psychopath, and that's the United States is a psychopath. And I'm sorry to say that, but the evidence of the last 60 years shows that to be the case. We're not interested in bettering, helping countries actually grow up and become independent. We want them to be dependent on us. And that where we get to call the shots, we get to dictate. So, it took really the lead up to the start of the special military operation, and then the imposition of sanctions after that, for the Russians finally to wake the hell up and recognize, good God, the United States is never going to be our friend. They were hell bent on destroying us. And it looks like now Iran's finally gotten that message as well. Again, Iran hasn't tried to assassinate U.S. leaders, even though that's the story being put out here in the United States. But the United States sure as hell has tried to assassinate and kill Iranian leaders. And the same in Russia, we tried. I think that, the June of 2025 will go down in history because between June 1st and June 13th, the United States tried to kill both Vladimir Putin and the Ayatollah Khamenei. And they did succeed in murdering a number of senior military officers in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, as well as nuclear scientists. It's like at some point you got to wake up and say, they're a threat. They're a threat. We can't trust them.
Do you consider Europe being somehow influential in the Middle East, the way that they've been for the case of Ukraine?
No. Europe is no longer. Europe has made itself into an irrelevant power. Malicious, they can cause some damage. They can stir the pot. They can create a lot of harm. But what do they have? What resources? They're not an industrial power. They're not sitting on a bunch of oil and gas, gold, lithium, rare earth minerals. Europe is a vestige of the past. They were the only reason Europe became relevant really was because of their colonial instincts, going out to discover and conquer other parts of the world, and got away with it for about 300 years. And now that gig is up, and they're exposed for what they are: weak and powerless.
Yeah. Before wrapping up this session, Larry, want to know, how do you feel about the future of what's going on in Ukraine? And we know that Russia has mentioned that they're going to talk soon with Ukrainians. What is the main goal of these talks for Russians? It's all about prisoners? It's all about exchanging prisoners and sending the people to their homes? Or they can achieve something beyond that with the Zelensky administration?
No, there's not going to be a peaceful settlement to this. This is going to be one on the battlefield, and you're already seeing, the tactics of the Russians are changing. So they are they're now bombing and blowing up cement plants. They're going after significant military infrastructure in a way that they haven't. They're launching really significant volumes of missiles, drones on targets, as well as the fabs, the bombs that are dropped and that fly forward. You're starting to see articles appear in the West that, Ukraine may not be able to last another 6 months, which I think is right. The Russian general staff is stepping on the accelerator. They are, and the movements of the troops in both retaking territory are important, but more importantly is they're decimating the Ukrainian military, both in terms of manpower and equipment. And, the West the United States is still sending some military equipment to them, but we can't produce any more to send them, because right now we've got to make a choice. Are we going to give it to Ukraine or give it to Israel? We're giving it to Israel. So no, Ukraine's days are numbered. I don't know the exact number, but I don't think we'll be sitting here talking about the war in Ukraine a year from now.
These aids that Donald Trump is sending to Ukraine are those who were promised by the Biden administration.
Right,
yeah?
right.
He didn't do anything new to help.
No, it would require congressional action. Congress hasn't taken any additional action to approve more funding. So the equipment and aid that's going to Ukraine it was already in the pipeline, approved. It just, maybe the United States didn't actually have it in hand and had to wait for it to be produced.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
Start off Monday on a positive note, right?
Yeah.
All right, my friend. We'll talk to you later this week. See you Friday.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye.